Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I am, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I'm joined by my man, Myron.
Welcome, folks, to the Thinking Man's Wrestling Podcast. And goodbye. That's all we had for you.
Yeah. No, dude, there's a lot today. Trust me, man.
Today's entire show is sponsored by anger.
Yeah, 100%. If you want, actually, Myron, I don't know if you noticed that hidden place that we don't talk about a whole lot here, and over on our thing over at YouTube.com, check out Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I put an anger rant. I had to edit that clip out, by the way. It was a sports rant. It wasn't about wrestling, but it's exclusive behind the paywall. Something we did last week on YouTube.com. Search Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, Tapped Out Podcast Network. Just look, you subscribe, but to see that kind of stuff, you got to be behind the paywall there, become a member on there. You lived it. You were live when I went off on the whole sports, the we, the us, they. I put that up behind the paywall. And I actually listened to it in hindsight, and I was like, dude, I dropped like that many F-bombs. I did not realize, live.
Yeah, sometimes it happens.
Yeah, but if that's the kind of rants you want to see, that is all over. I mean, I'm just telling you, dude, that was it was gold, I thought, after the fact. But
it was good. It was real good.
But hey,
how about this though?
Kudos, because we recorded prior. I got my Georgia Bulldog shirt on. We recorded prior to that national championship.
Now that was my kind of football game, Nick. Just get on them and beat the hell out of them.
Did you see, by the way, it was one of the it was either one of, if not the lowest viewed championships in the BCS college
Couldn't be more satisfied with that. There's no way I could be more satisfied about that.
Nobody, I mean, it was like people turned off. By the way, so much so that Raw had one of the best third hour viewers because people were like, just fucking go back and turn Raw on. It's over. Listen, I understand. And I do understand, like, real quick, let's sidebar on this, on that national championship before we go too far down the rabbit hole on the wrestling stuff. Like, I heard a lot of people saying, like, hey, Alabama, this is proof Alabama deserved to be in there and stuff like that. And I know you thought that as well. But my point was, they still lost twice. Like, I understand, they're the best team. The system is what the system is. So I think, like, I think TCU belonged there, but only in the proof of maybe the system is flawed, not, you know what I mean? It's like, the system is what it is. You have to follow the system. You can't change because of an exception in certain scenarios. And I think that, I'm glad we're going to 12 teams in the playoff. I think this will fix a lot of that.
It will fix a lot of it because by the time it gets to 4 teams, it'll be 4 SEC teams. That's what it's just going to come to. Ohio State.
Billy and I had this theory. Like, we were talking about this at work the other day. What's going to happen the first time? And I know it'll be difficult, but it is possible. What happens the first time the Final Four is 4 SEC teams?
It'll happen.
People will lose their mind. It won't be the first year, but because think about this, and we were running scenarios where it could happen. Let's say, and look, this is all hypotheticals, and I'm not even saying these teams are going to be there. Alabama goes undefeated in the West. Georgia goes undefeated in the East. Then you have a 1-loss Tennessee and a 1-loss LSU, right? Because they lost to the teams that are above them. So Georgia and Alabama play in the SEC championship. I'll go hypothetical. Alabama wins that game. Now you have an undefeated SEC championship, 3 1-loss, literally, and all of the losses come to those 2 top teams.
Yes.
So they all make the playoffs. It's all going to come down to seeding and bracketing. And here's the thing, what I said. You think they go out of their way to fudge the rankings now to get the matchups they want in the playoffs? Wait to how much work they're going to have to do when there's 12 to try to avoid that, to where you don't end up with 4 SEC teams. Like, we got to figure out, they got to knock each other out along the way, because we can't end up with 4 SEC championship or SEC teams.
Ohio State, this year's Ohio State team, if in a 12-team bracket, this year's Ohio State team would be the spoiler team. That would have been the team you would have tried to use to ruin everything, because they were the best team outside of Georgia by far.
Hey, and listen, let's fully say it. Okay, I did change my pick to Georgia, which I don't know why I did, but I originally said that I thought they were going to struggle against the passing game, and that's 100% what happened. Had Marvin Harrison Jr. not been hurt, I don't know Georgia wins that game. But it is what it is, right? I mean, but injuries are a part of football. That's what I tried to tell somebody when they were complaining about that. Just stuff like that happens. So, but I'm curious to see the first year 4 SEC teams ends up in the Final Four. The country will lose their ever-loving minds. So,
it's going to be great.
So, I'd love to know what people think about that. tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Let us know what your thoughts are. But listen, there's a whole lot of stuff to dive into. But before we get into it, before we dive into it, because I know we're both itching to go down this conversation. Before that, look, we're all trying to get healthy. Listen, dude, I told you I was going to clean up my health after the new year, and I have. I've dropped 5 pounds since I went back on my thing. Go. Listen, Cokes will do that. You give those Cokes back up, dude, the sugar just kind of falls. If I could listen though, I will tell you this though. Gary Lamb put a post up that's 100% accurate. You can have your drugs, you can have your alcohol. Food's my addiction. Dude, there are days that I'm like, you would be shocked what I would do for a chocolate chip cookie right now. Like, because I mean, the sugar is the absolute devil to me. Like, I literally have to think about when I'm passing certain places. Like, I love Chick-fil-A's cookies, the chocolate chip cookies. I try to find an excuse of like, maybe I should go to Chick-fil-A to eat lunch because then I can get me one of those cookies. I have to like talk myself out of it. But that's not bad. But that's all about life changes and decisions you're doing trying to get healthy. And if you are trying to get healthy, always check out our friends over at athleticgreens.com/emerging.
You're going to need a smaller cabinet because now you can take all those supplements you're taking or not taking and replace them with this. AG1 by Athletic Greens brings 75 vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens together in one place. It might just be the most comprehensive and convenient nutritional regimen on the planet. Immunity supporting, recovery enhancing, digestion improving, energy lifting. Made to the strictest quality standards. Made in New Zealand. Made for just about everybody.
That's right, buddy. Check out our friends over at athleticgreens.com/emerging and get on that health. Get it like straightened up right now, man. But let's listen, Myron. Let's dive into it. In case you haven't noticed, there was a little bit of news this week in wrestling. And by the way, most of it had nothing to do on a television show or in the confines of a ring, for that matter.
Nick, I wish we could get to next week and be talking about the Rumble. I wish we could get next week and be talking about the 30th anniversary of Raw coming up. No. We are in clickbait city, brother. Stephanie got fired and went to rehab. I can't take it.
She got pushed out.
I went looking for wrestling news this week. Okay? We recorded last week on a Sunday. We're recording this week on a Sunday too. Okay. Stephanie resigned. Okay. Stephanie McMahon resigned, then had ankle surgery at like the best doctor and one of the doctors at the Andrews things where all the good wrestlers and athletes go. Yeah. Then she goes to ankle rehab. She didn't go to real rehab. But if I'd have posted that Stephanie went to rehab on one of those damn clickbait websites, everybody would have went and clicked on it. Because as Jeff Mooney says, the Iraqians bought the WWE, and it's all over for now. Okay. Everybody on Tuesday, Stephanie steps down. Everybody was ready to give up on the WWE and get rid of their membership because the Saudis bought them. Nobody even went to check. Nobody. At best, you looked at a shitty wrestling news website. You know what? There's no such thing as a good wrestling news website.
All right. There are guys
on ESPN.
Hold on. I want to say this. There are a couple guys out there that I put a lot of faith in because they actually went out of their way to say, I have no confirmation of this, so I'm not reporting it until I do. And those guys, I kudos and respect. By the way, Mike Johnson is one of those guys. I'm a big fan. Sean Ross Sapp, I'm a big fan of as well. But like most of the others, not so much. Because like
jump
I said,
on it. You say just jumped on it.
Hey, be first. Don't be factual. That's the
they jumped on that train like a Tennessee sheriff's deputy. Okay, I mean it was a bad one. Okay, nobody even checked. I went to CNN. I went to every news website. I went to WWE and looked. Had nobody even went to fucking WWE's website and looked. Okay.
By the way, I went out of my way to point out for the fact I made some phone calls to some attorneys and some friends of the show to have this conversation before we talked about it. And by the way, if you're curious, that has to go to a vote to be done, and shareholders have to be notified. Last time I checked, I was a shareholder. I was like, I'll get an email if this is even remotely happening or it's going to be voted on. And until I get that email, I was putting zero stock in it. I'm not saying it's not happening. I want to stress that. I never said I don't think it's going to happen. Well, back up. No, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Let me rephrase that. I just don't think so. And, because of those layers, that's where you start losing faith. And by the way, the whole Stephanie McMahon thing, I always was like, people forgot that like 10 months ago, whatever it was, she resigned then. She only came back, and listen, you'll have to convince me otherwise. I think the only reason she came back was to defend her father's position while he was when he was forced out to begin with. That's why she was there.
But they didn't want to sell. Her and Triple H didn't want to sell, Nick.
And they may not.
Her and Triple H want to sell. I got two different stories. Nick Khan was only there to be a buffer between the two of them. He wasn't there to negotiate media rights still.
Okay,
he was only there to be
Listen, I don't know what episode, because I don't want to go that far. I'm not digging it for you. You want to find it, that's fine. When Nick Khan was brought in, this is a conversation that we've had for 2 years plus now. That when Nick Khan was brought in, I said, this is what Nick Khan does. He is for selling properties. Like, that's what he does. That's been his track record. I've always said I thought that's what he was brought in for. He was to trim the fat, to make this company, as appealing to a sale as property. I think COVID completely, froze time in that business model, because it was a hard sell during, the Thunderdome era of no fans, no team. That would have been a tough sell. I'm not saying it couldn't have been done. By the way, you do remember this? $4 billion. There's no way anybody's ever going to pay that for that company. No, you're right. Now they're probably looking at 6. Somewhere in that range. 5, 6, whatever. Somewhere in that ballpark. Which, by the way, I still argue it could be more depending on other things. But Stephanie left before, and it was like, why did she leave then? It was Triple H with a heart issue or something. Remember that? He's like, I think
he's got a massive heart problems.
Yeah,
and he's working full time again on the road.
Yeah, he looks like it, right?
So,
but the point being, she just went back to doing what she had done prior. She left. She had to. Maybe she wants to be a mother. Sometimes, guys, we look for shit where there just ain't nothing there. Now, I could be completely wrong, and all of the stories could be true. But it's just, but my version of just saying hey, maybe she just legit wants to be a mom for a while her kids are still kids.
Hey, you know who was at that national championship game, Nick? Nick Khan. And he was in the booth with Bob Iger, president of Disney, and Jimmy Utaro, president of ESPN.
Yeah.
Ooh, there's a conspiracy
what that means?
Theory, right? What?
Disney.
The Saudis. The Saudis were there in the booth. No, they weren't.
Okay, now let's go back to this, because I wanted to talk about this just a little bit. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, but we probably will. The reason I don't think the Saudis are going to buy it, I'm not saying it's not happening, but the reason I don't think it's going to happen, and what do I know? I don't. And I tell people that. It's just my opinion. They prefer typically, not always, there are exceptions, I know, but they prefer typically to own percentages of companies that generate dividends and, all kinds of revenue on a regular basis. By the way, a tangent off of a tangent, Myron, I just in good moral compass, or ethically, I don't know that I can back a WWE product that's owned by a Saudi government. Eric Bischoff pointed out something. By the way, I had the same conversation with one of our attorney friends that I just think we are so morally selective in our, in our judgmental states that we are so hypocritical. And and by the way, probably guilty as charged. I'm throwing my hand up. But we want to sit there and say, I couldn't support a WWE. By the way, they've been in business with them for a while. They've been taking checks of $40 to $50 million a shot, and we've still been watching.
They're
But
setting the pay-per-view over there.
yeah, but Bischoff points out like, but you'll buy Nike shoes and wear the swoosh. You'll own an iPhone. You're on Facebook. You'll get your gas at the BP gas. By the way, I thought it was ironic. BP, Shell, both are owned percentages of by the Saudi, fund. Well, it was like Boeing. You'll fly on that plane that Boeing made. That's gonna, So if do you do business with? I mean, because in a roundabout way, if you're flying with Delta on a Boeing, they're going to continue to make planes. That's going to benefit. So, I just think it's always ironic that we're super selective about like, well, that would be too inconvenient for me not to be on Facebook, or not own an iPhone, or not wear the Nike swoosh because I like the Nike swoosh. And Starbucks, by the way, they own a percentage of Starbucks. We saw that. So you're going to stop going to Starbucks and getting your crap a latte,
Oh God, I hate Starbucks.
Dude, look, my kids and my wife love it, and I literally.
But they get coffee, or they get like poofy shit.
They get poofy shit a lot of times. Most of them get poofy shit.
The coffee is like.
They give me a hard time because when we go and they can actually convince me I'm with them, and it's cold because you know my story. Once or twice a year, I get a hot chocolate. That's literally what I order.
Chocolate. Yeah.
But here's what's messed up. I prefer Swiss Miss, just pour some hot water in it, than I do the freaking shit that they serve me at Starbucks when I go. Like,
I can see that. We grew up.
Myron,
poor.
I'm a poor, country redneck kid, So yes, I prefer just.
Can
I get the one with the marshmallows in it? That's the one I want. Give me some of the ones with marshmallows.
That get bigger when you put the hot water on them.
Yeah, that's what
Sometimes.
I want.
Not always.
Not always. Sometimes you get to anyway. So let's cut it out with the hypocrisy, unless you're willing to go full steam. If you're on Facebook, how about this? If you're on Facebook bitching about the WWE being sold to the Saudis, shut the fuck up. Because you're contributing to part of that problem.
You're supporting a company that's owned by racists. I mean, the rapist racists already.
When you're sitting in Starbucks on your iPhone bitching about it on Facebook, shut the fuck up. That's my take. But I get it. Well, they own all of it, Listen, still to the core, Myron, we don't think they're going to be, I don't want to speak for you. I don't think they're going to be owned by them because the struggles of getting a TV deal will probably prevent it. Why would they pay?
Where does WWE make money?
TV, media rights. And if you told me today you're going to buy a company that's worth, and we're going to just, by the way, 5.5 is probably, I said 5.8 last week, I think was my valuation that the financial people told me. But let's say it's 5.5 to 6. Would you pay $6 billion for a company that within the next year or two is going to lose $2 billion of its, income over the next 5 years? Probably not.
No.
Because I think it's
WWE generates what?
I'm trying to do some math in my head. Roughly $500 million, give or take, per year is going to go away because these companies don't want to do business with you if you're owned by the Saudi government. That's a bad buy. Now, what did we say? I think I could see the Saudi government buying a ton of shares of WWE. So if and when Comcast Universal buys it and they transfer those stocks become Comcast Universal stock, they would own a chunk of those. I could see that. And I don't think the private thing, look, Vince is the wild card variable in all of this is Vince McMahon. Because guess what, Myron? Yeah. Nobody knows what the hell he's thinking.
But he's 77 years old, for Christ's sake. He's not going to live forever. Does he think he is? Does he really want to come back in for head of creative at 77? I know he thinks he'll live forever. I know he thinks he can do everything better than everybody else. And there are things he can. Seriously, Vince McMahon wrote my childhood. He did, and there's no doubt about that. But do you think he can come back at 77 and continue at that level? Dude, I get 50. I can't do shit as good as I did at 30. You think no. It's just not going to happen. And I think it's in better hands in Triple H's hands, Stephanie's hands. It's in better hands if you were to sell part of it. Or sell Vince's shares to Comcast, but whatever's going to happen, it's going to go to a company that's got a media empire ready to go. because it's just going to hinge on the media deals. All of the big media deals are coming due, and they're gonna negotiate those things. You've got your Nick Khan in place. They've hired the same company that negotiated the UFC deal, the same company that's negotiating the Manchester United deal, the same companies, the bigger investment companies. This deal, they're going through all their due diligence. Nothing, every T is going to be crossed and every I is going to be dotted. This is not something that's going to happen after 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, folks, like it did last Tuesday.
Right.
Okay. We're not going to hear this when the Iraqians and Jeff Mooney all lose and we quit investing in WWE.
By the way, they did not.
Relax. We'll get notice. We'll know. And I have a feeling it's going to go to an investment firm, most likely backed by a giant media firm.
And what killed me, Myron, is the stock went up, and then everybody the next day. By the way, wrestling news sites should probably stop reporting on stocks, because when I saw stock drops after, blah blah blah, the stock went from like 90 like 91 to like 89. I'm like, okay, you clearly don't know how the stock market works. That's not a huge deal.
That happened after closing, though, right?
No. It's down. It's down to 89 something or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, it was like at 60 something like a couple of weeks ago. Like, it just relax. Yeah. So anyway, we'll get off of that. Sorry, bye.
This is big cut, but my thing is, this is stuff. Finding out this information, I pulled this stuff off like financial websites. I went and looked up sporting news about the UFC sales. I looked up sporting news articles about the Reign company that is negotiating the Manchester United deal. They're in it deep. The sale is imminent. It is probably going to happen after February 15th. I don't think we're going to see anything before February 15th from what I have studied on. I went and actually did a book report type thing where I went and found websites outside of wrestling websites. Okay. Yeah. I went outside of wrestling websites and looked into financial websites. We're going to see it. I predict it'll probably NBC will be the company. What is it? What's the official name for them?
Comcast NBC, Universal. Yeah.
I think that's going to be the company. And then it's going to be down the list. Media, Saudis at the bottom. No way in hell.
The funny thing is, I loved, because it's a long shot, but I loved Bischoff's take. If he was a betting man, he would go put money on Endeavor that owns UFC. Because he likes to bet on long shots. He doesn't like to bet on favorites because there's no money to be made. But he was like, they have agreements and they have, like a background of running some of that type of thing. By the way, sidebars, numbers, whatever we're on. The talks of Tony Khan and, the Khan family buying WWE, going private or whatever, or even doing some merger stuff or whatever. I think there's a very valid point that Bischoff brings up. And by the way, if we're talking about bigger business, especially when it's involving media and television and things like that, yeah, I get it. People want to say what they want to say about Eric Bischoff, about he drove WCW in the ground. Okay, I don't believe that. I read the books.
But even if he did, he was there.
Yeah, he understands a lot of things. His take that, and this will be, I said this quote before we recorded, and I said, I got to use this on the show for a reason. AEW is they're in the same business, but they're in a different universe, a business universe, than WWE. AEW, for all of as great as we love about them, they're a national television company. And everybody's going, well, they're international. They're a national television company. WWE is a global company with a massive travel thing, with media rights out the wazoo, with action figure deals that are crazy. Well, like, think about all of their stuff. I jokingly said, and I don't mean this as an insult, it's comparing a guy who owns like 3 convenience stores in town to Quick Trip. You're in the same business, and a lot of it works the same, but it's on a much larger scale. And the question that Bischoff brought up was, We're not saying they don't have the money. We're not saying they can't do it. But currently at this moment, do you think there's an infrastructure in AEW, like comparing the two infrastructures to that of the WWE? Like, are they ready to make that jump? Because here's the thing. When Vince built the WWE, it was a 20-year process, right? Like, it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. Tony Khan would be going from, hey, you're in the kiddie pool, to we're throwing you out into the deepest part of the ocean, swim.
Yeah, and sharks.
Right. And again, I'm not saying they can't do it, but are they ready to do it's the question. By the way, I think it's a terrible idea because, by the way, one of the things we bitched about the most when we only had WWE was essentially there was a monopoly. I don't want another one. Because if one company's back to owning them all, it ain't good for the wrestlers, in my opinion.
No, I agree 100% because it would be another monopoly. It's just going to be a different bunch of clowns owning it.
Well, they're going to make the same argument. Well, there's a guy who's better at... Will Tony Khan be any better when it comes to negotiating? Because we've seen the deals. We've seen the deals, and I would beg to differ they don't. Just a whole other tangent I want to get down to maybe next week about non-competes and all that crap. But if Tony Khan didn't have to be, would he be? That's the question. I don't know Tony, and I'm not saying either one. But my question would be, if he didn't have to be competitive, would he be competitive in contracts?
Nick, last night, as part of my studies for the show, I watched the AEW Wednesday program. It was horrible, and I hate to say that. It's MJF, and it was that was it.
And everybody else.
There's some good. I mean, the wrestling's okay. The wrestling's pretty good, but
shockingly, the trios champions are once again the Elite, which we called 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, shockingly, trios. Me and Dave Wills had this conversation last night. I'm like, trios don't sell in America. He goes, yeah, it can if you got the right people. And he was like, when it was the Freebirds and the Von Erichs, it was a big deal. I'm like, but it was the fucking Freebirds and the Von Erichs, Dave.
And it was
you're never going to get that again.
It was 1980 something.
Okay, and it was in World Class, right, which was in the Southwest. But there was one visual, and I actually didn't realize it was on Friday night that the visual came from. And this is where AEW makes their horrible mistake, in my opinion. The one visual I got, and I'm not saying anything about this as far as the quality, or I actually wanted to watch it. I tuned in personally to see the Ruby Riott Willow Nightingale hardcore match where Ruby Riott was covered in blood. I'm an adult wrestling fan. But the visual that got all over the internet, Nick, was Ruby Riott covered in blood.
Right.
And that's the visual you were using to sell your product. And if you were a mother of a kid that wanted to watch the AEW product, and that's the visual that was everywhere from your product, even though it was 10 o'clock on Friday night, still prime time, right?
Yeah, technically.
Okay. You had that in prime time. And that wasn't a pay-per-view, that was a regular show. You can't.
I beg to argue though. I think they do use too much blood in my opinion. But I think they get a bad rap that it's kind of put out there that it's more than it is. Like I get the feel like every wrestling show there's some guy gushing with blood on it, and I'm like, okay, that's not really true. But the problem is, that's the perception because there's constantly pictures of guys busted open and bleeding everywhere on wrestling websites. So, hey, there's a thing that Bischoff says a lot that it's true when it comes to this. There are times when these guys who call themselves wrestling journalists are potentially doing more damage to the product than they are helping it.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. When we constantly see the bloodied, whatever, I'm like, it's probably not a good thing. Of course, then again, guess what? Our argument says the family person's not watching that anyway. They're not on the wrestling websites anyway, so they don't give a shit. But if it's on Facebook a lot, it could be a problem.
Well, it's like that. It's like that police meme. I asked my girlfriend Melissa if she'd seen it just yesterday. She goes, I don't know anything about it. Well, she doesn't subscribe to meme websites like I do. She doesn't have friends that are horrible, dirty bastards like I do. So they weren't circulating the meme.
Yeah.
She doesn't hang out with the wrestling community. So the meme wasn't going around like
Right.
in her.
Doesn't
friend
she
group.
know that
So
memes make the world go around?
That's pretty much my opinion on things. If it's a meme, it's the highest form of understanding.
Yeah.
But I tried to I tried to I try to tell people you want the best foot forward when you're promoting a company like that. And when I try to help people, I'm not a promoter, but when I try to help a company or a person promote themselves on Facebook or anything like that, I always try to share the best pictures. I always try to share the best things they've said.
Mm.
I don't, people have to be careful about what they put forward. And that Ruby Riott picture, although it would draw
Yeah.
in serious wrestling fans, was not a good picture for the
Right.
casual fan. Not for the casual fan.
Right. No, I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, but listen, we've talked about like some changes, like putting the best foot forward. Like a lot of news has been going out. I know you NXT the last couple of weeks, you were
Yes.
talking about it, and you said that
Yes.
you've watched it. And what was your take on it? I watched it, and I'll tell you my take after you. I want you to share yours first because I think it's funny.
Well, it's like a high school play with simulated combat. Um, the wrestling stuff is pretty good. It's you can tell these people are developing talent, but the acting is horrible. And I hate to say acting when it comes to wrestling. The sports entertaining part, the entertaining part of the sports is not entertaining.
The character
That's
portrayal.
what I'm trying to say.
There you go.
Yes, there we go. So what was your take on it?
So it's funny because you said that, and then two things though. I said for one, ratings have been up, viewership's been up, whatever. Take that for whatever it is. But my comeback to you was what? I said it's developmental. If you expected to come in and get a polished Smackdown Raw level product, that's on you, the viewer. Because that is not what it's supposed to be. It literally is young talents, typically. I know the New Day's down there, blah, blah, blah. But your typical person, Braun Breaker, Grayson Waller, on and on, Brinson and whatever, the Buchanan kid and his partner, and on and on. It's a lot of young, up-and-coming talent. Yeah. And I think the bad acting that you're talking about, they're all gifted athletes, by the way. Like, the people they're bringing in, they're gifted athletes. I didn't say they were great wrestlers. I said they're gifted athletes. So physically, they're going to pick up the in-ring stuff faster than I think they're going to pick up the other. And I think sometimes some of the shitty acting that you're talking about, I vividly remember, by the way, Jeff Jarrett, Eric Bischoff, and Bruce Pritchard all discussing AJ Styles being pushed out of his comfort zone of just being a great wrestler and doing like character work in TNA. And like the Flair stuff that he did with Flair, the stuff with the other woman, like there was another woman involved, like was he having an affair, that kind of whatever. All of that stuff was what got him on WWE's radar, because then it showed he could do some of the sports entertainer part you're talking about, some of the character-driven stuff. And I think what I would take from it if I were these young kids coming in, they're just wanting to see, like, how far can I go? Like, they're going to take me out of my comfort zone, make me do some wacky, weird shit, and I'm going to do it to the best of my abilities, because then the company says, okay, this guy, this girl, whatever, they'll go out of their way to make what we give them the best they possibly can. And so, yeah, you're going to see some bad stuff at times, lots of times, because guess what NXT is, Myron? It's experimental developmental. So it should be a little wacky.
I'll tell you, they got a ton of talent, Nick. An absolute ton of amazing, like, physical talent. And some of the new people they got down there that I hadn't seen before, especially the women. Jesus Christ, the women were just like amazing in that 20 women battle royal. But if they can get them as polished, and there have been people that have been down there a while that I think they probably could pull any time. But man, it's fun to watch it, because it's almost like watching an indie show at times, you know? It's almost, because, you know, a lot of the people we've met, you know, it's cool. You know, a lot of the people we've met over the years that have been in the indie shows and stuff, that's cool. But the best, to me right now, the best entertaining stuff going on is the whole Bloodline storyline, Nick.
Oh, 100%.
100%. they have totally converted me on the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens bit. Okay. I think that's going to go down as a legacy. The two of them, I'm not going to say it's going to be in some kind of, Flair Steamboat type thing or go down as one of the greatest, two guy matches of all time or the greatest series of matches, but it's good. I was so pissed off. I was watching SmackDown and it was a great match. And then the Usos interfered and took out Owens. I was like, you son of a bitches. Because it happened to it's Southern Honor. I was watching a great match and Joe Black interfered. I was like, God damn it, Joe. That was a good match. Why did you have to interfere? It was the same thing. They interfered in the match and messed things up. So then you see Sami Zayn is killing the acting part. Okay. So I can't wait to see what happens when Roman talks again. That storyline has gotten so good. And you don't know if Roman is going to do. How did they draw this out of Roman Reigns? How has Roman Reigns become this focal point when he was the absolute most boring wrestler of all time?
I disagree.
A year ago.
I disagree. He's always been this entertaining. It was just regurgitated ad nauseum on social media. He's being shoved down our throats and this. By the way, just so you're aware, he's still being shoved down your throat. You've just learned to like the way it tastes. And I've said that constantly, and it goes back to the wrestling fandom in the sense of if someone hears it over and over, it's got to be true. Roman's been good for a long time. Like, we had friend of the show. I mean, that was Nathan Littman back in the day. Remember, he was a big Roman fan back in the day. And everybody would, people would shit on it. And then I always thought he was, he's super talented. Look, it's in his, no pun intended, it's in his blood. Like, he's just, it was something I feel like he was destined and he was born to do. It's a naturally gifted guy. But because everybody was like, he's being shoved down our throats and we're so sick of him. But no, that's fan stupidity is what that is. Dusty Rhodes was shoved down your throat. Hulk Hogan was shoved down. By the way, for the record, Ric Flair was shoved down your throat. There was tons of guys over the history. Literally. Yeah, exactly.
But Manny Pafo was shoved down his own throat.
But I'm saying, like, there's guy after guy after guy, but you weren't, and when I use the word smart enough, I'm throwing the air quotes there, you weren't smart enough to know it. Ultimate Warrior was shoved down your throat. Goldberg was shoved down your throat. I mean, literally, should I continue on and on and on? But yet, now we're smart enough to know better. No, you're too smart for your own good to realize you probably wasted 2 years of his career appreciating him. Now, it's just cool to like him and appreciate it. So now he's at the top of his game. That's the problem.
Are we too smart to enjoy it anymore?
Yes, most of the time we are. Anybody who says otherwise, Bill Burr moment of the week. When I read websites where guys are pointing out things that are like, A, they're the obvious, or B, it's just because you've been told that to the point that you're saying it now. If you're not in that room, you don't know. That was the one of the key things from the Saudi stuff was, Bischoff was like, this would be a board of directors conversation. If you're not in that room, you don't know. And if you're talking to somebody who's on the board of directors, A, they might be feeding you full of shit. Because here's the thing. You know what would happen? It could drive the sale price up. There's actually something to gain for leaking that information up. And by the way, who's got the most to gain from that? Vince McMahon. Because if the buy price goes up, by the way, he's going to benefit the most out of it. And anyway, like the wrestlers.
Anyway, Vince wins.
Yeah. So anyway, I do want to come back because I don't want to go back into that. We've already discussed that. Bloodline, I agree. It's great. I think, look, Roman it's almost like everything he's touching is turning to gold. And that's because, he's not being shoved down your throat anymore, even though he really is. He's on everything, right?
But I'm like I said, I've learned to appreciate Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn, and I missed out on those guys. Roman Reigns because I was smart, and Kevin and Sami Zayn because I was trying to avoid being too smart because I thought I was like, oh, we'll be all alternative and not like those guys. I just let myself relax now and enjoy wrestling. You know, I don't worry about all this stuff anymore.
It's amazing how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. But the thing is we're going to go talk about natural family born into you, them inherited performers. We're going to, Bray Wyatt. I don't get this at all. I know everybody's loving this stuff. It is just going so far over my head. And I am like, what? What are they doing?
I think this is for somebody different. And that's what I tell people. We always have this conversation. Wrestling's like the circus, right? There's something for everybody. I think there is a target demo for this. I'm with you in that I think it's moving slower than I would like. But like, again, let's go back to what I just said that I would like. I like long-term storytelling, but like, I don't like 7-8 book Harry Potter storytelling where it's like, it takes me 20 years to get through it. Whatever it was. By the way, I don't watch a ton of Harry Potter. So
I don't know jack shit about Harry Potter.
Kitchens can throw me a note about how long it actually took.
Never read a book, never watched a movie.
Oh, but no, I've seen every movie because I'm married to a Harry Potter fanatic. But that still doesn't mean I know how long it took them to come out because I didn't watch them as they were coming out. So,
well, I can tell you all about RuPaul's Drag Race because
you're married to that, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm not married technically, but she really likes that. So.
Yeah.
I don't know what's better, Drag Race or Harry Potter. It's a lot of magic, just something in different ways.
So the Wyatt thing, I get it. It's not for everybody. It does need to at some point. We need to start. Uncle
But he
Howdy,
announced he's Uncle Howdy. After last week, we saw Uncle Howdy.
But how could that be? They stood side by side in the ring.
Yeah.
Alexa Bliss, by the way, also claims she's the real face of fear. So, and then
Who
there
were
was
the faces of fear. That was
the Barbarian and Haku Ming, right?
Yeah, that was the real faces of fear.
That's what I said. When she said that, I was like, what?
She couldn't.
Wasn't that but Ming and
Barbarian? Yeah, she couldn't hold really much of those two.
By the way, shout out to Dave Wills. That's right up his alley. But yeah, so lots of people.
Tommy Young. Tommy Young.
So yeah, I just think we're probably all getting to that point. I'm glad that at the Rumble we're going to start seeing.
I can't wait for the Rumble. Yeah. I am so psyched for the Rumble. It's my favorite pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is. It's literally our favorite, both of ours. By the way, I just apparently got a message. I'll have to put that video up. I'll show that later. We're going to discuss some of this in a minute. Literally, what I just got a video from. So
are we talking about independent wrestling now? Or
we are. We're gonna move into Impact. Impact Wrestling was in Atlanta. I'm not calling it independent wrestling. Kudos and shout out Mickey James is the new Knockouts champion. Lots of local talents on the card. Oh yeah, 100%.
Love Mickey James.
Glad to see. By the way, I heard they did. I know some people mocked like the smaller arena, like center stage that they did. Sellout's a sellout. You got your Impact TV tapings. If you got a full crowd in it, kudos. And we saw some pictures for some friends of the show that were there.
Some Carly Bravo.
And yep, Zicky Dice had a match on the TV, so I'm excited to see that match. Hey, was that one on your subscription, the YouTube subscription? Is that one of the ones you
I haven't
get?
Looked. I've been tied up all weekend working on stuff,
okay.
So I haven't.
Well, I thought I couldn't remember if that was one of your ones that's included with your because it's not.
It might be.
Yeah,
I might be. I'll go look. Well, no, that's an actual pay-per-view. It's an actual pay-per-view.
Okay.
So you have to buy it. So
okay. I didn't know if it was one of. Well, I thought they had so many free pay-per or whatever that was part of the thing, and then there were. I don't. Anyway, we'll dig into that later. But I do want to talk about
amnesia and all the alcohol I used to consume.
I know there were lots of shows this weekend, but the big show was down in Augusta. IW had their big show. They were back, first show of the year. Had a great weekend. Like I heard the crowd was great. So kudos to them and shout outs to two show favorites. All-Star Special capturing tag championships. Skrilla the Great, your new Mayhem champion, one in a cage. How about that picture of Skrilla, dude, with 3 belts, like one over each shoulder, one around his waist, making his claim like he's gonna be a player.
He is a player. He's gonna have to tote all that gold. That's getting awful heavy.
Yeah.
It's gonna get awful heavy. You're gonna have to get like a cart or something to help him out with all that gold.
Get him one of those luggage
That's a lot,
carts.
man.
Yeah. Get him a suitcase
Yeah.
just for the titles. I agree. But yeah, proud of Skrilla. He's still out there crushing it. Deserves more love than he gets on a regular basis.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
It's lots of stuff going on. All-Star Special, by the way, a modified version of the All-Star Special. Huck wasn't in town, so Jay Too Strong slips in and teams up with Hold My Beer Hansen and captures. Yep. Luckily, there's history there, so there's a little bit of history there. So those guys work well together, and they capture title gold from the Exotic Youth down in IWE. Lots and lots of stuff. I heard there was a great match with Tim, Joe Black, Anthony Henry. Put on a good match as well. Lots of stuff going on. Some mysterious stuff going on. We're gonna have to see what's going on with Cruel. After White Mike's defeat, there was a little flickering of the lights. Cruel coming. So we'll have to see what happens there in the future. Man, because that's a monster. It's a monster. White Mike, I don't think you want to be on the bad side of one Cruel. No matter how you got there or why, right?
No.
So again, kudos to IWE. Crushed it down there in Augusta. I think they said like 321, I think is the number.
I'm telling you, right, in 2023, I'm gonna go ahead and say this about independent wrestling. I'm just in Georgia. I don't know where it is the rest of the country. I follow Georgia very, very closely. 300 crowds are terrific in Georgia right now. There's a lot of people running. I have never seen in the 6 years we've been following indie wrestling in Georgia, I've never seen a time where more feds were running. I mean, they're like just popping up everywhere. And it's crazy. It's just crazy. It's just federations everywhere. If you're drawing 300, you're doing a great job right now. And especially the way the competition is. So congratulations. I want to throw out a big congratulations to Gary Lamb and everybody up there at the Elevate Fight League. Wow.
Crushed it. Looked like they said 900 or something like that, roughly.
Wow.
Listen, Gary Lamb, friend of the show. We always know, Gary doesn't like to do things half-ass. He dives in right into the deep end. And looks like they did a great job. And look, we're going to end up there. I got to go see one of those shows at some point. And you know what? I need to have Gary on. Maybe we'll have him on and talk about that show and put it on our, you know where I would put it, Myron?
Where's that?
Right on our YouTube channel. I should put it over on YouTube, do an exclusive and put it on our YouTube channel behind the paywall. Maybe release it down the road over, again, Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast, Tapped Out Podcast Network. And then, you know what? Might even add it to the old feed, Myron. You never know. That would be a big enough one that I think I could add that to the podcast feed over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere and everywhere there is a podcast platform. Subscribe there, because if I do that interview, I'll probably put it everywhere, not just on the YouTube, but I will have it behind the paywall first. Because, listen, I think there's a great story to be put out there for a lot of our a lot of people know Gary from Southern Honor. He's the promoter for Southern Honor. I'd love to get the backstory, and then now that the show's done, so that way you not only have the developing part of it, but it also how it's going on there. So yeah, so I would actually love to have him on and discuss that. So maybe that's a project that I can do here in the next couple of weeks and pull that off with Gary. So I think I could probably pull a string or two and make it happen. I think so. We'll see.
Yeah.
But listen, man, it's not even that, dude. We ended with college football. We started with college football. Talk a little pro, man. Look, we're recording on Sunday, so we're missing, we haven't seen the Sunday games or the Monday night game. Poor Dak's going to miss his Disney cruise if they win that he booked for next weekend. By the way, that's a joke.
I doubt he's going to win.
I showed that to my wife, and she just looked at me like she wanted to stab me in the heart with a pencil. She's a big Cowboys fan. Yeah, exactly.
I don't really follow the pros much at all. I'm a college football fan. And I'm mainly just a Georgia fan. I watch independent wrestling, and Georgia football, and any SEC game I can see. But God Almighty, the pros are hot right now, man.
Dude, that's freaking chart. I watched I literally somehow, some reason, I watched that Chargers Jaguars game. It just was like, are you kidding me?
I didn't have to watch that Chargers. I didn't have to watch it. I had Dave Wills giving me the running score last night on the telephone, reading me out, telling me stories about the old days of Georgia wrestling, and then giving me the score, running score. It was a beautiful thing. Y'all ought to try that sometime. But I actually probably going to watch some of that football today. I got the day off till this afternoon, and then I'm about 6 o'clock. I might sit here and watch some football and relax down here in the basement. It is an awful peaceful place.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably. Myron will laugh. A funny story. So some friends of the show will pick up this. I picked up Fallout 4 again.
Oh no!
Started a whole new game.
I was thinking about doing it because I'm remodeling the basement, and it's not really remodeling. I'm just kind of moving shit around and picking up trash. But I can't. I if I start that, I will never move again.
Well, I'm trying to make it a rule where I wake up. Here's the thing, Myron. This is how I remember we had a conversation, and I'm not going to go into it. My goal is every morning when the wife leaves for work, I come downstairs and I play for an hour. That's all I get.
Okay.
So think about it. If every morning when Melissa gets up and starts working, you go downstairs, you get 1 hour. Because guess what that does after that hour? Now you're up and running and you get productive. But you only get 1 hour.
That's a great thought.
Because that's why I said
that's a really good thought.
The only game time I get is if I get up and I'm downstairs now my wife leaves at 7. So by 7:15, I get to play till 8:15. Then I have my whole day to be productive. But I got to play a game for 1 hour.
Wow, that's really impressive. Because Melissa starts work at 8 o'clock.
There you go. Be down in the basement by 8:15. You get to play till 9:15, and then you got to get you a coffee, take it downstairs, and just sit there and sip on your coffee and play Fallout. Because that's the monitor. I play on that monitor over there. I just fire that bad boy up, and all I got to do is turn my chair and start. I got my Xbox 360 controller hooked up to it, or Xbox One controller, whatever the hell it is now. And I just sit there and
now
play.
Now that I can't drive, Nick, I got to make my own coffee here at the house, and I'm eating Raisin Bran. God knows how much Raisin Bran I've been eating, Nick.
Did you know you can meal prep eggs for 4 days? I've been scrambling. My new thing, you'll get a kick out of this tip, and then we're going to get out of here. Because everybody knows I'm trying to do this keto thing again, where I was had a pretty good success on it. I scramble about 8 to 10 eggs and just put them in a container. I have these airlock containers. I scrambled about a pound of sausage, pork sausage, and then every morning when I wake up, I just put so many ounces, like 5 ounces of eggs, 3 ounces of pork sausage, and like an ounce of cheese, and then put it in the microwave and heat it up and stir it up and eat a breakfast bowl that I made myself instead of going and buying the thing that they froze at the grocery store.
I didn't know you was doing good enough to afford that many eggs.
Well, eggs is eggs. Eggs is the easiest thing to eat for breakfast. I do the egg sheets some weeks where I just bake like in the oven, the big egg sheets with ham and cheese and stuff in them. But I tried that breakfast bowl thing, and I'm like, dude, I dig that, because then I can, put like you can fry up some ham and mix it in instead of sausage. You can make your bacon. You can put bacon in there instead. So you can actually make your own bowl on a regular basis. That way it's not all pre-cooked up. Otherwise, you're eating ham and cheese, eggs, sheets for an entire week, because that's what it makes. So
I was wanting to go back to light beer, but that wasn't working. So I'm going to stick with Diet Coke and coffee for now. But and Raisin Bran. But I tell you, if you want to support a company not owned by Iraqis, I would support the good people at Pro Wrestling Tees and purchase some of our fine merchandise. Tapped Out Pod. I've been wearing a lot of it now that I'm homebound. I wear it every day almost. It's always nice and comfortable and fits very, very well. True to size.
Yep.
Very durable goods too.
Yeah, I mean, we've had ours for a while. I mean, like I said, now granted, we have like 4 or 5 of them of each type, it seems like, but
Pro Wrestling Tees / Tapped Out Pod. Look into that.
Yep. Check them out, man. Get a shirt. We appreciate all the support anywhere. Make sure you're subscribing. Like I said, I've already talked about it. Make sure you're subscribing on the podcast. If you're an audio platform listener, leave a 5-star rating review if you're so inclined. Also over on YouTube, make sure you're not only liking the page, subscribing to the page, and hell, become a member so you can get some of that extra stuff. By the way, I think I'm going to be putting up MB Mooney's latest video he just put up. I'm going to put that up probably today or tomorrow. That's going to be the Bad Batch review. I know you're a
good.
fan of that, so I'm gonna put that up on the channel as well.
Well, actually, I'm a fan of his reviews.
Yeah.
I've had trouble with the series though. The first 2 episodes were boring. Episode 3 kicked ass.
There you go.
So
let me
I'm
ask
ready
you a
to
question.
get back into it.
I keep saying this, and we're gonna get out of here. But here's the pop culture question of the week.
Yes.
Let us know what you think at tappedoutpod@gmail.com too. By the way, doesn't that seem to be the trend with a lot of the Disney stuff? Like the first couple episodes are like setup episodes, and they feel like they're slow and they're dragging, and then they start picking up speed. And for some reason, episode 5's the magic number where it's just a fucking kick-ass episode, and then it's wraps up in the next like couple 2, and it's over. But it's like develop, starts getting good, better, crushes it with 5, and then 6, 7 it wrap ups. So, let us know. I'd love to know what people. Yeah.
I got another fan question. Has anybody else watched Pennywise? I have watched all of the 3 seasons. I'm hoping it gets renewed for a 4th, but the situation at Warner Brothers is not looking good. I hope it gets renewed for a 4th season. That show is whack.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So absolutely. We'd love to know your viewing habits. Maybe we can get MB Mooney to start, like, you guys send us questions about like series, and we could ask him to review those. Maybe that's a good take. So tappedoutpod@gmail.com. We would greatly appreciate that kind of stuff. But man, hey, that was a full show between football, wrestling, sales, business, favorite characters, clickbait websites, and and then we talked a little bit about Disney Plus stuff. So I think that was a good week, man. You got anything else before we get out of here?
I got nothing else, man.
Well, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
Time to tap out.